Are we live? I think we're live, lads.
We're live, yeah.
It says we're
We're
live.
live.
This is unbelievable. Does someone want to check on your phone to see if we're live? Someone check on your phone.
Is this to get the viewers up?
This is Apparently got 2 viewers. Go on, just check, Chris. I'm very intrigued.
We are live. We are live. This
It's
is very
unbelievable.
professional. This is very professional.
This is so professional. 20 seconds in. Are we live? Yeah, we're live. I better introduce. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Early Bath Football Podcast. We are live for the first time, which is huge. Huge scenes, quite frankly. This just makes it easier for us to upload and stuff, and be fun. Friday night. What's there better to do? Friday night football, baby. I'm joined by Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Mr. Tang.
Hello. Barnes is here as well. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's just the three of us today. I think all the other boys actually have social lives and actually do stuff, which is great. But yeah, we've got a few things to talk about. The first of which is a review of the Champions League, which returned for match day 2 or game week 2 this week. Do I sound okay in these headphones, lads? Do I sound okay? I don't sound too close.
Lovely.
Do I? Fantastic.
Like velvet.
Velvety, yeah. Lovely scenes.
You sound simply lovely.
Simply lovely. And we're looking simply lovely. Very humble, as always. Lots of stuff happening in the Champions League this week. Obviously, the PSG, Man City, the Oil Derby, which I'm sure Chris has a lot of views on. And Liverpool also got a big win. Milan, who I'm currently sporting, lost 2-1, and Sporting also lost against Dortmund. So linkages there. But Chris, what caught your eye this week in the Champions League? What do you want to talk about?
I think we got to talk about the big shock that happened. To be fair, there was quite a few shocks that happened in the Champions League, but obviously the big one that happened at the Bernabeu, Real Madrid 1, Sheriff Tiraspol 2. Absolutely incredible scenes. It was quite funny because you sort of joked on the Champions League preview, the one that we recorded Monday, which came out on Tuesday. You sort of like, I think it was Lynchy you asked the question to. It's like, what do you think to like the Real Madrid Sheriff game? And obviously none of us talked about it because we all thought it's just going to be a Real Madrid steamroller victory in that. But you got to give credit to Sheriff Tiraspol. When I saw the group that he was drawn in, I just thought, yeah, they're just going to be whipping boys 0 points out of 6. But they've won their first 2 games. I mean, just beating Real Madrid at Bernabeu was just incredible. I mean, Sheriff are a team that were founded in 1997. And, a year after that, Real Madrid were winning their 7th Champions League. Like, Real Madrid have won, I think it is 7 Champions League for Real Madrid have won since Sheriff have been formed, which just shows the magnitude of how big this upset is. I know in our group chat, we were sort of saying, what's the biggest Champions League upset we've seen in our lifetimes? And I know Ginge put Rubin Kazan beating Barcelona at the Nou Camp when the absolute Turkish legend that is Gök Deniz Karadeniz, great name, absolutely great name, scored the winner at the Nou Camp. And obviously I know, I think it was me or Barnes suggested it, but it was when Apoel Nicosia got to like the quarterfinals. I think it was the 2012-2013 season, which again was an incredible achievement for them. But to me, I think this is the biggest upset there's been in the Champions League. Not only that, it's just obviously it couldn't have happened to a better club either in Real Madrid. Obviously, with the whole thing that happened earlier this year in regards to the Florentino Perez, wanting this European Super League, and obviously he didn't want to play against teams like Sheriff. He didn't fancy playing against teams like them because he just thought, Champions League should only be about the big teams playing against the big teams. And it was a bit of a backhanded insult to teams like Sheriff who, they're there on merit. They came through 4 rounds of qualifying just to get into the group stage. And that, they became the first team representing Moldova to get into the group stage of the Champions League. And it was just brilliant. And the goalkeeper for Sheriff had the game of his lifetime, because obviously I looked at the XG philosophy. I think there's like now a European football one. Obviously I know there's a Premier League one, but there's now a European football one. I think Real Madrid had like a XG over 3, which pretty much showed Real Madrid should have absolutely destroyed Sheriff. But I ain't going to pronounce the Sheriff's goalkeeper's name because it is quite hard for me to pronounce that. But he had the game of his lifetime, and even before Sheriff got the winner, I think it was their fullback. I think his name's Costanzano or something like that. He made a really crucial interception of Luka Jovic, and the winning goal. Sebastian Till, take a bow, son. Literally, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Go, obviously, after watching this, go and watch it. But incredible left foot half volley right into where the spiders live. I mean, you got to score goals like that to beat, keeper with such class as Courtois. And he also made a bit of history himself, Sebastian Till, because I think I might be wrong in this, but I think I've read this correctly, that he is the first player from Luxembourg to score in a Champions League group stage. So obviously personal history for him. And also with Sebastian Till, it's not his first upset in European football, because I'm going to apologise to Rangers fans for bringing this back up. But he was part of the Progress Niederkorn team that knocked us out of the Europa League.
Who?
Luxembourg called Progress Niederkorn. Obviously, that was back when Rangers were managed by Pedro Caixinha, whatever his name was. That basically absolute banter at Ibrox, and and I think on social media they showed Till has this incredible tattoo on his leg where I think it's him looking up to the Champions League trophy, and that it was pretty much a fairy tale story. It was
that's a bit weird though, isn't it? That's a bit weird. You got a tattoo on your leg with the Champions League trophy. But fair play to him. It was a good strike.
It's better than Memphis Depay's lion on his back. I'll just put that out there. It's a better tattoo than that.
Yeah.
Doesn't Daniel De Rossi have a weird tattoo on his leg?
He's got the hazard sign, or it's like him breaking someone's leg in like a traffic sign. Hazard.
Aiden on his leg. I will try and pronounce the Sheriff goalkeeper's name. I think it's Georgios Athanasiadis, maybe. But
it's a great attempt.
It's a great attempt, thank you. But I watched the Sheriff Real Madrid highlights just before this, and I tell you what, Real Madrid battered them. We've given, I think, people give Real Madrid a bit of hate and a bit of stick, especially recent years when Ronaldo's left and they've sort of dropped off. But they actually played all right. Obviously, Hazard was playing for them. You got Modric still playing for them, David Alaba and stuff. But Real Madrid obviously put out a good team. It was Champions League, but they played well. And the 9-minute highlights on BT Sport was pretty much all Real Madrid, apart from the 2 goals they conceded. So, yeah, I think they did all right. I think Sheriff definitely deserve it, don't they? They absolutely deserve it. Going to the burner, but I think recency bias, but it's one of the biggest upsets, probably the biggest upset, just because Real Madrid are Real Madrid. They're 13 times champions of the Champions League. Obviously, that Rubin Kazan side did beat pretty much a prime Barcelona, didn't they? So, you could argue about that. To be honest, Real Madrid probably have a worse side than that Barcelona side. But Sheriff, I would say, are a more worse side than Rubin Kazan were at that stage. But, I don't really know the ins and outs of Rubin Kazan at the time. I don't think I could name a player. Chris, could you?
Well, Sheriff didn't have a player like Gök Deniz Karadenis. Unbelievable Turkish winger.
There you go.
With a great name.
A great name. Absolutely great name. Great name. Barnes, Champions League. What are you thinking?
Yeah, just to add to the sort of Sheriff conversation, I think last season in the Champions League qualification, they were knocked out by none other than Dundalk on penalties in the qualification round. Possibly. He possibly scored a penalty. So it's kind of huge when you think of it from that perspective, that last year they were getting knocked out by Dundalk. This year they're winning away at the Bernabeu. You can't really knock that. It was an interesting week. Like Chris said, there was a few shocks. Benfica, Barcelona. I'm not sure that counts as a shock, but Koeman's getting fired, isn't he? He's very much on borrowed time. I expect Laporta to make an announcement imminently saying goodbye to Koeman. I'll tell you what's a really interesting sort of Champions League group that I don't know. It probably doesn't get a lot of mention because they're not the most, I don't know, typical teams you see in Champions League. But Group G, there's some funny teams in there, and Salzburg, RB Salzburg, are top of the group, which is they played some great football last year in the Champions League as well. But they're a bit unlucky; they didn't really get the results. But it'd be really interesting if a team like that could get to the knockout stage. If you compare that, I think their manager went to Leipzig as well. I think they lost again I can't remember who they lost to actually, but they lost to Bruges, didn't they?
Yeah.
Club Bruges, another team who they're on 6 points, and they got a tough group. I'm doing a butcher another name for you, Tang. You might have to get ready on the pronunciation. Charles de Ketelaere, I'm going to go with. He's a young Belgian player. He's got the top chances created in the Champions League group stage so far, and he's been really bigged up in the media as someone who's on a level of kind of like the Pedris and even Phil Foden I've heard him mentioned with, which considering he plays with Bruges is a bit of a surprise. And honestly, I haven't seen enough of him to say how good he is, but he's clearly doing well for Bruges this season, and obviously they've had 2 really good wins so far. And lastly, I suppose just to mention would be the Juventus-Chelsea game. If you looked at the form of the 2 sides in their respective leagues, do you think Chelsea would have won that? I think Juventus really struggled at the start of the season, whereas Chelsea have looked pretty formidable. Yet they look really flat against Juventus. I thought Juventus actually were good value for that win. So I guess that's a bit of a shock. Chelsea coming off 2 losses now in a row, so that would be interesting as well. I know we'll come on to the Premier League later, but I don't know if anything stood out for you, Tang, in the Champions League.
I'll tell you one thing that did stand out to me, and it's Manchester United against Unai Emery's Villarreal. We've talked on this podcast. To be honest, we've talked about this on the podcast for a couple of weeks now, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his style of play at Man United, or if they do even have a style of play. And you've definitely brought up Barnes, and a lot of people concur that it's based on individual moments. It's not really a style of play. It's not tiki-taka. It's not press. It's not high press. It's not anything like that. It's just individual moments. And again, you'd argue, and I put it to Lynchy a couple of weeks ago, is individual moments technically a style of play? And United, technically, again, 2 good moments won them that game. Alex Telles is the free kick from Bruno Fernandes and that volley from Alex Telles. You can't really. What I'm trying to say is, you don't really teach that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't go on the training ground and, say, okay, lads, we're going to win. We're going to try and play for a free kick in this position to do this specific thing. Alex Telles, you're going to specifically do that. That's not an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thing. That's a Bruno Fernandes or Alex Telles talking to each other and saying, we're going to do this if it happens. That's it.
Yeah, we're going to play awfully for 80 minutes or 90% of this game and play good for about 10% and come off with the win. We will hope that former Bournemouth winger Dan Juma had absolutely no idea he was at Villarreal out of nowhere. Give him loads of space, give him loads of chances, and let's just hope he misses loads. The hair will save it. It's fine. That's
exactly.
I don't want to go into become more Ollie stressful or Ollie skeptical because we've done that on previous podcasts. But I saw quickly. I saw a radio interview with Peter Schmeichel, and he was saying, Who else could we get other than Ollie? There's no one better right now. He's got the DNA. I'm going to do the Jose Mourinho. If I speak, I am in trouble. I don't understand those comments whatsoever. And if by now you still can't see that Ollie isn't an elite manager, I'm not saying he's bad, but isn't an elite manager, then frankly you're never going to see it.
It's a difficult one. I think, again, talking about the moments thing, I looked at the Ronaldo goal. He heads it in the direction of Lingard, right? Lingard then passes it back to him, but the cross comes in from, I think the cross came in from Fred, right? The initial cross.
Yeah.
The Villarreal defender tries to head it away, and then he walks about 10 yards after he tries to head it and just doesn't trap Ronaldo at all. You'll see it in the highlights. Goes for the header and just goes completely off screen, exit stage right, and just forgets he's a defender, forgets he's a footballer. And then when the ball eventually comes up to Ronaldo's completely free. Again, you don't teach that. not in an ironic way. You just don't account for that in a game. You don't account for a defender just completely leaving. But Ollie gets away with it. I don't want to say gets away with it because that suggests I'm a bit Ollie skeptical. Maybe I am. But is that an Ollie special potentially? The moments, the individual pieces of magic. Chris, I know Owen and Leif aren't here to defend themselves, but would you like to put your thoughts in on Manchester United's performance against former Arsenal manager Unai Emery?
But before I start speaking, I was just going to say Barnes sounded a bit Ollie cynical, shall we say?
Very good. Very good.
In his commentary now. I must
this is a running theme now.
I must admit, I only really saw the goals from the Manchester United Villarreal game, and obviously I did see like match stats and that, and it kind of looked like it was going to be Man United trying to break down a Villarreal team that was looking there to go there, get a draw. If they got something on the counter attack, then obviously it would have been a good result for them. But then obviously I've also heard that obviously De Gea had a very good game for Manchester United. People were saying it was one of De Gea's best performances in a while, which you got to give credit to De Gea, because obviously you look back a few months ago in that Europa League final, he was sort of the villain in that way. He was the only player to miss a penalty, and he's proven. I think it helps that he has Dean Henderson behind him, bit of competition to say, look, if you slip up, David, we've got Dean here ready to come in and take your spot. Because that was a big debate last season. Obviously, Ollie started with David De Gea because Henderson had a great season again. Well, he had 2 good seasons in a row at Sheffield United. He helped them get promoted, and he helped them, finish in what was it, 8th? It was 9th place, weren't it? They finished. It might have been lower actually, but he helped them finish like quite high up the table in that first season with them. But they come back into the Premier League, and obviously there was a bit of pressure on De Gea last season, and Henderson was sort of pivoting to it. I mean, obviously it hasn't helped Henderson that obviously he tested positive with COVID and it hit him quite hard, because I think I saw that he played in an under-23s game a few weeks ago with Phil Jones. It was against Arsenal, and I think Arsenal beat them. I think it didn't just beat them. I think Arsenal put quite a few past Manchester United in that game. But it was a great performance from De Gea Wednesday night, and like you said, Tang, like there isn't a style of player on it. It is just moments of brilliance. But when you have a squad filled with such talent and that, because it was quite interesting. I know I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here, but the whole thing with Jadon Sancho, obviously he's been picked for the England squad this month, and you could argue what's he done to merit it? Is it Southgate being loyal to him? But then you look at England's internationals, and Southgate hasn't really played Sancho. He only the only game I can remember him playing out of memory was Ukraine. He's brought him on a few times. Don't get me wrong, but he isn't a trusted starter. He's not he isn't someone like a Mason Mount. He isn't. Even I think Southgate trusts Bukayo Saka to start ahead of Sancho more. And another interesting thing, obviously looking at the game, I did see the clip go around on social media of poor old Donny just sat on the bench, just very angry. That I mean, too far, I'd be angry too if a player like Fred was coming on ahead of me. And obviously that might be going a bit too far, because Fred is a professional footballer, and I'm just I play football on a Saturday for a bit of a laugh and that, but yeah, no, like just poor old Donny. Like there's a good player in there. There's a very good player in there. You just look what he did with Ajax. But maybe that's again down to the whole Solskjaer not having a system, not having a style of football. You look at Ajax's style of football. They play the Johan. They like to say it's the Johan Cruyff way of football, fast flowing, attacking football. Quick passing and that. Whereas Man, you just don't have that sort of style, and it doesn't suit Donny. And obviously, there are rumours that he is getting frustrated about what's happening at Old Trafford with him and that. And I think he is, going to try and look for a way out. It'd be interesting to see who gives him a chance, mind. But yeah,
would you take him, Chris, at Arsenal? Donny van de Beek, would you have him at Arsenal?
You wouldn't you?
That's a very good question. I don't think I would personally, because obviously we've got Smith Rowe, Ødegaard, and I think Van der Beek's one of them that you'd probably be better as a player behind the 3 rather than in the 2. And obviously, you look at Arsenal in the 2. Obviously, you got Partey, Xhaka, Sambi, Lokonga, and not only that, like our transfer business from Man United hasn't looked good. It's not like Man U stealing players from Arsenal, or Sanchez, albeit otherwise. Obviously, they took Van Persie. Is brilliant for them. Obviously, then you look at Arsenal, took Mikel Silvestre, took
Mkhitaryan,
who wasn't very good either. To be fair, Danny Welbeck, he just had his injury issues, bless him, and he did score some important goals for Arsenal, but yeah, he was just too injury prone and that. So I think looking at the transfer history from players going from Manchester United to Arsenal, I don't think I would take Donny van de Beek just to play.
I think that's a fair precedent that has been set there. United have, just thinking about when you were talking there, Chris, United have a couple of enigmas, don't they, in their squad? Donny van de Beek is a bit of an enigma. You know, why he's not playing. He's obviously, I'd be upset. He might be upset. I don't know. I don't speak to Donny personally. Fred's a bit of an enigma. The fact that he literally starts every single game. I don't want to be that guy who says I could do a better job than footballers and managers, but Fred just doesn't do anything that I think is that another player can't do. He's one of those footballers. I don't have it with many footballers, but he's one of those footballers where I think, how are you professional and earning money? But, you know, that's just me being a bit cynical. And then also Phil Jones is an absolute enigma, isn't he? How he's still playing. He's another one of those who I believe is just like, how are you still playing for A, Manchester United? 2, how are you still on a contract? And 3, what are you doing? Like, it's crazy, isn't it? That Phil Jones is still there, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obviously backs him in the media and stuff with I think the Rio Ferdinand comments the other week, and it's just crazy. And just one final thing before the Champions League review segment ends is we've got to give a shout out to the PSG Man City game, which we didn't even discuss, maybe because we don't want to talk about it because we're football purists here at the Early Bath. But Lionel, it's really funny, right? Whenever Lionel Messi scores, there's always a tweet or a comment from someone that just goes, Lionel, that Messi bloke's a bit good, isn't he? You know, like a really sarcastic, like, oh, he's actually as good as people say he is. I always see it. And again, obviously his first goal for PSG, this Messi bloke's all right, isn't he? He's a bit okay. All those comments came out. It was a good goal, wasn't it, lads?
Not bad. I think one thing about Messi that annoys me is that, you know, every time Messi scores a good goal, you just know a bang average Gary Lineker tweet is going to follow it with some absolute BS that you don't want to read. So that is one problem with Messi scoring. But it was a fantastic goal. Can't take it away from him. It was brilliant.
It just rubbed salt into extra Barcelona wounds, didn't it? Not even just the Messi goal. Obviously, Messi getting his first goal for PSG, and then obviously in the Atletico Madrid game, you had Griezmann getting his first goal since returning to Atletico, and you had Luis Suarez getting the winner from the penalty spot as well. And then obviously Barnes talked about it, like earlier with them losing 3-0 to Benfica, which was just. I mean, I don't really want to laugh, but it is hilarious in a way. Barcelona just turn into this absolutely bang average team. They're pretty much turned into Arsenal.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, Chris.
Wouldn't go that far.
I think there's a bit of a for me anyway, there's a bit of a romanticism about Barcelona. They were so good when we were growing up. They were unbelievable, weren't they? But they have been running to the ground, and it's not any of our fault. There's only a couple of people that is their fault, and it's sad that they've gone that way, but we won't forgive you for the the Super League, sorry. We'll move on anyway. We'll move back to our shores. We'll go back to the Premier League. We'll do a preview. It's Friday night. We'll do a preview. Let me just get the fixtures up. Oddly, now we discussed this with Owen, but United have the early kickoff on Saturday, which is a bit odd considering they played in the Champions League this week. Maybe the Cortinas are playing again at some near Manchester Stadium. Who knows? Did your girlfriend go to that, Barnes?
She did. Very good. She did. Yeah. Apparently packed out the full cricket stadium. So yeah, I didn't realise that the two Old Traffords were so close together, but there we are.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah.
Man United versus Everton, the Wayne Rooney derby, the Louis Saha derby, the Marouane Fellaini derby is the early kickoff this. I can't think of any more Man United.
David Moyes derby.
The David Moyes derby. There you go. I'm sure there's more Everton Man United.
Darren Gibson derby.
Darren Gibson. Did Darren Fletcher play for them? No. He's
Michael Keane. Michael Keane derby.
Very good.
Michael Keane.
Very good knowledge. He's just showed a bit of knowledge there. That's a big game. There's also a huge game. Brighton Arsenal is a huge game, isn't it, as well? A real big, a Premier League giant, against Arsenal in that game is going to be good. And then I'd argue the second biggest game after Brighton Arsenal is Liverpool Man City on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. That's a huge game. I think it always is nowadays. There's a whole Klopp versus Pep agenda narrative, isn't there, now in English football, which is great. But Chris, what are you going to be thinking about when the Premier League's on this weekend? Where are your eyes going to gaze to?
Well, it might not be the 3 o'clock kickoffs to start with, because obviously playing football again tomorrow.
Who have you got tomorrow?
So we got Freeland Reserves.
Village again.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh dear, we hate to see
it. Down at the ATP, so hopefully we'll do them at home.
The theatre of dreams, the Whitney ATP, where dreams are made of. That is next to a McDonald's, if anyone's wondering. For those who don't know.
Yeah, but I'd probably say, obviously there are a few games I've got my eyes on, and obviously the main one being Liverpool Man City, but I don't really like how they build up this Guardiola versus Klopp sort of thing. They're making it sound like it's Fergie versus Wenger. Klopp versus Guardiola is nowhere near going to be as good as Wenger versus Ferguson. All right, both teams do play entertaining football and that, but they actually have mutual respect for each other. All right, Fergie and Wenger respect each other sort of now, but back in the early 2000 days, they hated each other.
Prime Barclays years, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Like, it was just fantastic growing up in that period. Like, you just see that the Arsenal Man United games back then, like they literally went out on the pitch to kick lumps out of each other, especially Roy Keane, Vieira. They were doing it even before the whistle. Those two, they was having a right argy-bargy in the tunnel and that. But on a more serious note, obviously it'll be a good footballing game. I know Guardiola come out in his press conference today and pretty much said Jurgen Klopp's made me a better manager, which I can see that, to be fair, because Liverpool have pushed Manchester City like quite far, and obviously they beat them to the title a couple of seasons back. And it's interesting because Klopp has had Guardiola's number a few times. I think like with last season, I think Liverpool just didn't build much momentum, and I think Man City took advantage of that, because wasn't it like 3 or 4-1 at Anfield last season, if I can remember correctly? It was like I know Liverpool made a few mistakes because he had one of the Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, and
classic.
Sort of moments. I think it was when I think it was Alisson gave the ball away, and both of them just did their like in unison and that. But obviously, it's interesting. Just obviously, Man City just not really having a recognised number 9. I think that's what they struggled with midweek against PSG. Like, just not having that out and out striker, that guy that's just gonna, just stand up top and just put the ball in the back of the net. And that was, you could argue Liverpool don't have one of them either, because, like, Firmino, he is one of them that he doesn't really score as many goals as he probably should do in that. But I think Firmino, he's useful in the build-up play, and obviously they do have a winger in Salah that obviously has been like winning Premier League golden boots and that, and he's made a cracking start again to this season again. Mo Salah. I mean, I know I was a bit scathing of Neymar, saying, like, for me, he isn't like the third best player in the world. Like, you could make an argument that Mo Salah is probably behind Messi and Ronaldo in terms of being the third best player in the world. I know, again, maybe City fans, you could also make an argument for Kevin De Bruyne as well, but it's like, that's the thing. It's just going to be a brilliant game. They're 2 star-filled squads, and that they both got. I mean, Man City obviously arguably do have the larger depth, and I know Liverpool have a few injuries going into the weekend, like especially in the central midfield. But I think that will be an interesting battle, and of course, can't not talk about Brighton v Arsenal, can we? I think, no, to be fair, I think that will be a cracking game. I I know Brighton, they've been a bit of a bogey team for Arsenal in recent history.
I think Brighton have won 2-1 against Arsenal quite a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. So that seems to be if you want to bet, please gamble responsibly, obviously. 2-1 Brighton is probably the bet to go for. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that might not be a bad bet, but in fairness, Arsenal have won their last 3 Premier League games, obviously last 4 in all competitions, and if they can play the way that they did against Tottenham, especially in the first half, then I think they have more than enough to beat Brighton on Saturday. But I think it would generally be an interesting game because I think Brighton will obviously have a lot more energy. Obviously, they'll press more against Arsenal because, let's face it, Tottenham just looked lethargic against Arsenal. They looked like they didn't want to be on the pitch. And that, obviously, I know we talked about it more in the last episode and that, but I think Brighton will be a tough test for Arsenal. Am I confident Arsenal are going to win? Obviously, being the negative part-time Arsenal fan that I am, probably not. And that, but you never know. It's definitely going to be a good game for the Saturday sort of tea time slot, and that live on Sky.
Live on Sky. Tuck into your takeaway. See a Potter masterclass and Potter ball there, and probably Ben White will hand in a transfer request and go back to Brighton soon after the game. I imagine after a 4-0 drubbing. Barnes, are you wearing a Brighton top?
Seagulls.
Yeah,
I'm only wearing it because we might get onto this later actually. But a particular player who
of course
shares a surname and a first name with me used to play for Brighton. I'm not a Brighton fan. Sorry, Brighton fans.
I kind of am. So
you are. Yeah, it's fine. It does. What's going on in the Premier League then?
Tell me.
I think it's not going to be the most glamorous game, but I think it will be one of the most interesting is Burnley versus Norwich.
You've chosen Burnley now for the second week in a row. You've gone the most interesting game. You said Burnley Leicester last week, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, that was 2-2.
Are you a Burnley?
That was a good pick. I did used to live in Burnley, so but no, again, I am not a Burnley fan, and I'm not a Brighton fan. But the Burnley-Norwich game is going to be good, or it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. Both teams, no wins yet. Whoever loses, I'm not saying the managers are in trouble because both of them have been their post quite a long time. But let's face it, if they lose that fixture, this season is not looking good whatsoever. I really worry for the team that loses this. I know Burnley have done it before where they've started poorly and they've come back. But something about them this season, I know Ed said it on the last podcast that something just doesn't seem right with them. I don't know. Maybe, managers have that sort of time limit with a squad where things start to go over the edge. They sort of peaked and they're on the way down. And I'm not sure Burnley will be able to, Burnley their way to just staying up this season. Norwich, if they win, then it could be a catalyst for them to start improving in the league. If they lose, I'm sorry, Chris, me and you have made a terrible shout. They're doomed. I think this must be up there, one of the worst Premier League starts ever. I remember Palace had quite a bad one a few years ago, but I think when they had Frank de Boer, but I think even this start would top that. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping for a Norwich win. Come on, at least give us something, Daniel. Come on, Daniel Fart's got to give me and Chris something.
Daniel, if you
want. Another interesting game would be Chelsea versus Southampton. I mentioned earlier that Chelsea came off the back of 2 poor results, and they've not really clicked in recent weeks, even though they've got some good results. Even in the Villa game, it was actually a tighter game than the score would suggest, and I think Lukaku played exceptionally on that day. They haven't actually created loads and loads of chances and looked amazing in some of the games. So I think against the Southampton side, who have, again, no wins and struggled so far this season, I think it's a good opportunity for them to show their title credentials, especially with a team in Southampton who have got points against Manchester United and Manchester City so far. So it'd be interesting to see if Chelsea can manage to get a win over them, or Southampton part of the bus yet again and managed to escape with another point. But yeah, I think that's a good game. Obviously, I don't have too much to say on the Liverpool-Man City game, but obviously in the context of who's going to win the league and top four, it is a huge game. I have a feeling it's come a bit too early in the season. You know, one of them where a big game comes a bit early in the season. And I just think it might be a bit boring. But this game has been entertaining in previous years, so that's just a hunch. That's not based off any, statistical evidence.
Thank you. Again, great insight into that. I've just checked. No evidence, just my thoughts. I've just checked the Premier League table. There are currently 5 teams that still haven't won a game this year: Norwich, Burnley, Newcastle, Southampton, and Leeds. And I just feel that's a lot of teams not to. We're not October.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
We're nearly 2 months into the season. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, that's another game like Leeds versus Newcastle. Both, like you said, both teams without a win. I believe that's the game. You might have to.
Oh, it's Leeds Watford, isn't it? Leeds Watford, Newcastle. Sorry, fans. Sorry, football fans.
I apologise for my terrible insight.
Judgment.
Because who've Newcastle got again? Because I know they've got some that's going to be
Wolves.
They've got Wolves away.
Wolves, yeah.
The Lions' den. That's the den. Sorry.
So obviously that's like, to be fair, like those 2 games are going to be interesting because you probably think that Watford would probably like go to Leeds probably looking for a point because like fair enough, like I was scathing of Watford when I first said like who's going to get relegated. I literally said Watford straight away just because they'll sack Cisco at some point. They probably will still sack Cisco at some point. It's Watford, but obviously that's going to be interesting to see because I know Leeds have struggled with injuries as well this season. I think Bamford's still out for the game on it's Saturday, isn't it? That game. Obviously Bamford's still out for that game, and I know like Rafinha, Dan James, they got like a few like niggling injuries. And that, so obviously that's going to be interesting, like whether Leeds, can finally get over the line and get that first victory. And obviously with like Newcastle playing against a team like Wolves, like it's weird with Wolves. Like apart from the Brentford game, like pretty much most games they've been in, they've actually looked like a good team. It's just the final third, they just it's either poor end product or it's the wrong decision that they make in that final third. And I generally think like, if Newcastle do go to Molineux and not get anything, like they could be, they could still be in serious trouble. But we're pretty much just going for every Premier League game here and that. But another one that I probably wouldn't mind pointing out is Crystal Palace versus Leicester, the 2:00 kickoff on the Sunday. Because if I'm being honest, Leicester have not had the best starts to the season. Like not just Premier League, Europe as well. They threw away a 2-0 home lead against Napoli in their first game, and then they went to Warsaw last night and lost 1-0 against Legia Warsaw. And Legia Warsaw, then they're at the bottom of the Polish league from what Leif was saying on the group chat last night. And they're going away to a Crystal Palace team where I wouldn't say they've clicked under Vieira, but it looks like something's happening there because what was interesting with obviously Crystal Palace v Brighton on Monday is that I think they said that was the first time like for a while that Crystal Palace actually were the better team stat wise than Brighton, that they actually dominated possession, had more chances to win the game, and that because I think I've read like last season like Palace had 4 shots on target against Brighton and they scored 3 of them.
They did.
And that which goes to show you how they've sort of changed their ways from Roy Hodgson to Patrick Vieira, and that and obviously like Selhurst Park, like Crystal Palace, like the fans there, that as much you probably wouldn't like me to admit this, Tang, obviously with your Brighton roots, but you got to admit the crowd at Selhurst Park is one of the best crowds in the Premier League in terms of them creating an atmosphere. And I think it'd generally be a tough game for Leicester. And I think odds on Edouard will fancy his chances against Leicester's back line on Sunday.
Yeah, I think after the emphatic draw that Neil Maupay saved for Brighton on Monday night, I was looking through the sort of Brighton and Crystal Palace hashtags on Twitter, and I think a lot of Brighton fans did admit like Crystal Palace looked a lot better under Patrick Vieira. Then again, the Roy Hodgson teams. No offense, Roy, if you're listening. But Brighton fans were actually quite impressed, and Chris Palace actually gave them a game. More in tune of what they've been playing against Palace with in recent years. Palace were obviously under Hodgson were just a bit stale, weren't they? They're a bit defensive. They didn't really have a style of play, I think is what I'm trying to say. So I think Chris Palace are actually on the way up, and as you say, Chris, they've got some great fans. Apparently, it's a relatively decent stadium. I've heard both ways. And then on Wolves, I think you said that they keep themselves in games, and they've just is it final third product or whatever. But just looking at their stats, they've scored 3 and they've only conceded 5 this season. The only teams that have conceded less than them this season is Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea. And they're the top 3, and then you've got Wolves who are 14th and 3 points off the relegation zone. So Wolves are actually doing okay, but it is the fine margins, especially in the Premier League, that will get you. But you fear for Steve Bruce, as we always do on this podcast. We always fear for Steve Bruce. Let me move on to our final segment. And Ash, you did segue into this naturally, and it's part 2. We should have like a theme tune or a theme song for this segment. But we're back with the fantasy 6-a-side teams. And for those who don't know, or for those who weren't here last time, I put in the group, it was a late night. Picture the scene. It was a late night. I was sat in bed and I was like, could I make a fantasy team of players who just have my name? So Kieran or Tang. And could I do something with that team? What would be the best fantasy? It was originally 5-a-side. What could I do with that? And then it sort of evolved into a 6-a-side team because he had to incorporate a celebrity guest a la Soccer Aid or something like that. So you heard Chris and Ed's last time, didn't we? Really good, I thought. Really good teams. We're going to go through. Chris is not. Yeah, no worries. Chris isn't going to do his again. So we're going to do mine and Barnes's. So Chris, who would you like to see first?
Let's go with Mr. Barnes first.
Mr. Barnes then. Okay.
I think we'll go. Too far. I don't know who's older out of the two of you. I was going to say age before beauty.
It's me. It's me by a day, isn't it?
Just by a couple of days.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go Barnes. And I think this is your team, Barnes. So do you want to just go through your team?
I mean, first of all, it's an unbelievable squad.
Let me remove this banner here so you can see the full names.
Full glory of the squad. We'll go top to bottom. We'll start with my main striker. He's got the same name as me. We've mentioned him before. He plays for Burnley, and he's an absolute S-house. Ashley Barnes couldn't not put him in. He was competing briefly with Ashley Fletcher, another terrible, or let's call him Premier League journeyman. Terrible's harsh. He's not terrible. But yeah, I had to give Ashley Barnes the nod in there. What can I say about him? I have nothing to say about him other than he's a solid Premier League striker, and he's been doing it for Burnley the last few years.
He's a solid 7 goal a season striker, isn't he?
Yeah, probably less than that. He probably actually scored about 4 goals. His goal record is terrible, but he seems like the kind of player that's like really hard to play against and just really annoying. So I mean that might be quite useful on a 6-a-side. I've gone for a bit of Burnley link up. This is again outing myself as a huge claret. I'll put Ashley Westwood in centre midfield, linking the play. Don't have too much to say about him. He's again quite an average Premier League player, but he'll knock the ball around. But where it gets interesting, and I think the key here is my wing backs that I've got in here: Ashley Cole, Ashley Young. Bags of experience. I mean, if it was me, everything's going for Ashley Cole. What a career he had. I know Chris is probably sat there, crying about him been going to Chelsea and all that, but what a career. Come on. No, Ashley Cole, superb. Ashley Young as well. I know it's 5-a-side, so you don't get that many you can't really shoot from free kicks. But he's got a good delivery. And again, he's one of those annoying players to play against. I feel like this team is tough. If nothing else, there's not the most creative, but hard to play against. Finally, I've gone for Welsh captain or former Welsh captain Ashley Williams.
Lovely,
solid as a rock. Probably got absolutely no pace now. Is he retired? Does he even still play?
I think he has retired. I know he does pundit work for Sky Sports on some of the games.
Praise be to Ashley Williams.
Praise be. Happy retirement, Ashley Williams. He's in there.
From all of us, the early bath.
Chris, you're good at that. From all of the early bath, happy retirement, Ashley Williams. And in goal, for my celebrity, of course, he catches them all. I've gone for Ash Ketchum.
All right, end the broadcast now with that pun. End it now.
I'm out. See you later. My job is done. I don't think I can continue with awful Pokemon puns, but I don't want to subject you all to that. So yeah, boys, what do you think of that team anyway?
Chris,
it's better than Ed, surely.
I think you've nailed it on the head perfectly, Barnes. You say it's going to be a tough team to beat. Like, obviously, it's just an experienced team overall, and with Ash Ketchum in goal, like he might chuck a Pokeball out and just put Snorlax in goal.
Oh,
and no one's scoring past that, are they? Let's face it.
Good point.
And I mean, it was a struggle to get past Snorlax in the old Pokemon games itself. So
of course,
yeah, it's going to be a struggle to get the ball past him in between the sticks. But yeah, no, like you said, experienced team, tough to break down. I can see your team playing for a lot of draws. Let's put it that way.
How dare you? We'll play a lot of attacking football.
It does look a bit defensive. Come on now, you can't say anything.
I think it's a very well balanced side. I think it actually genuinely. If I can see this on like Masters football or something, like I could see this team actually being Masters a team. Football. Like this, I think this is actually a very realistic team. And I think it could, apart from the fact that obviously Ash Ketchum isn't real, it's a very realistic team. I think it's an absolutely fantastic, and even as a Cheryl fan, she's not Cheryl Cole anymore, or Cheryl Fernandez Vicini. I don't know what her surname is, but as a Cheryl fan, it's football, and I've got to support the boys wherever I can. So Ashley Cole's a good choice there. Right, we'll move on from that. Oh, I'm really big. Let's change that. This is my team. So when I did mine, I didn't realize that I was very strict, and I had to for Kieran. I chose only the spellings of my names, Kieran, the right way to spell Kieran, by the way. So, and I found out that every single person who is in world football who is called Kieran is a fullback. Kieran Richardson, Kieran Tierney, Kieran Trippier, Kieran Gibbs. So I had to choose. Out of those four, do you lads reckon that Kieran Gibbs is probably the best striker? Or I thought he's the worst defender out of the three. So I think he might be the best attacker out of process of elimination. Although Kieran Richardson did play up top, like more attacking. I don't know. But I'll go through the team anyway, and I'll let you decide. So Kieran Gibbs is up top. Then it's sort of a midfield three, but it's obviously wing backs. It's Kieran Richardson on the left, Kieran Trippier on the right, and then Kieran Tierney in the middle. And then at the back, we've got Japhet Tanganga, which I completely forgot, but that is my name, partly. And when he's not getting red cards and pushing Wilfred Zaha, I think he'd be quite a good defender and a good player for this team. And then in goal, there's only one actor apparently, or famous person, that's called Kieran. That's Kieran Culkin, who is only famous for being Macaulay Culkin, Macaulay Culkin's brother. So he's famous for being the brother of the actor from Home Alone. That's it. I don't know what he's in. I have no idea. I just Googled Kieran famous people. So Chris Barnes, what do you think of this six-a-side team?
I'll go. What the first thing, I can't believe get out in the comments so you can think of any famous Kierans. There isn't any. None. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
That is the biggest thing to come out of this. It's huge. I can't believe there is no famous Kierans. That's actually unbelievable.
Could I be the first famous Kieran?
Well, Who
knows?
Keep watching. Could happen. Kieran Richardson, I'm not sure about.
Yeah, you're not sure about that? I thought he was great.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's quite a difficult one, isn't it? There's probably not that many footballing Kierans, but it's a good side. Solid team. Like you said, a lot of fullbacks.
Chris, what do you think?
I think it's quite similar to Barnes. It's going to be a tough team to beat, but I think Barnes has the benefit that he actually has a striker in Ashley Barnes, whereas Kieran Gibbs up front, I wouldn't be too sure on. But like you said, would you want him in a defensive-minded role? You probably wouldn't.
Exactly.
Obviously, that's based off the old Arsenal experience for Kieran Gibbs, and obviously Kieran Tierney is your star man. You know, he's a great player. He's an easy captain of that side for me, Kieran Tierney.
He is my captain. He is my captain, absolutely.
And like he's brilliant. He's one of them players that no matter how bad the team's playing, he'll be the one that always puts in 110% no matter what. Obviously, Kieran Trippier, great experience in that side. Maybe Kieran Trippier might be a good way to sort of get in the word of Tanganga, you know, calm him down a bit in case he's off on one or if he's having a bad game like he did against Arsenal on Sunday. And yeah, I'm going to still bring that out because Arsenal beating Spurs is just fantastic, really. Not sure on Kieran Culkin in goal, but then obviously I can see your problem that you probably didn't have many options in terms of
options, Chris. No
playing
options.
Goal that's called Kieran, or even like Barnes said, it's baffling. You try and think of a famous Kieran, and it's just blank.
If anyone knows a famous Kieran, let me know.
Yeah. I mean, there might be famous Kierans, but it might be Kieran spelt the sort of Irish way, as I'd probably say, the CIARAN way.
Oh, well, technically, my name is spelt the Irish way too. Oh my God, this is not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. But yeah, so that's two more six-a-side teams that we've seen. We've still got to see Owens, Leifs, Lynchies, and Gingers as well. So be sure to, whenever they're next on the podcast, I'm sure we'll go for them and see that. But I think that's everything that I want to talk about. Did you guys want to talk about anything? I'll open the floor up to you if you want to discuss anything.
I will bring up one thing. But yeah, I was flicking through or doom scrolling down Twitter earlier. I saw a nice thread of most likely football managers to be the next James Bond. I thought some of the responses to it were pretty funny. But I don't know if you boys, I know I'm asking you on the spot, but for me, I had two, I think, that I thought of. The first one was Cisco Munoz. We don't get, I said on a previous podcast that I'm completely ignorant to Watford, but what I have noticed about Watford and Cisco is he always wears a black suit to the games. You notice that? He's a very well-dressed manager. I'm going to go out and say he's the most well-dressed manager in the Premier League. And he looks quite suave, so I think he'd be well-placed for a James Bond kind of role. The other one as well would be Patrick Vieira. I think he's very cool, very calm, but also a very tough guy on the pitch. I think he's quite unassuming, but I could see Patrick Vieira being a James Bond. I think he'd do a job. I think he'd look good in a suit. So yeah, that's I don't know if you boys have had any thoughts on this.
I mean, on the spot, I think the first one that comes to mind, I don't know whether he'd be a Bond or a villain, but Zinedine Zidane, I feel, has the aura and charisma to play a Bond character, at least. I think he's got the very bold head. Just does it.
Villain, surely. Villain, you can see him stroking a cat, can't you?
Yeah, you definitely can, right? Or le chat, as they say in France. Chris, what about you?
Cat in French. Yeah, obviously tough one on the spot. I'd probably go with someone like this is probably a cop-out answer here, but I'd probably go for someone like Maurizio Pochettino, maybe as a Bond. But I also maybe if we're going for a younger, maybe someone to play Bond for 10, 20 years, maybe someone like a Julian Nagelsmann, obviously the Bayern Munich manager. And that because he wears funky suits. Obviously, that's one of the great things. Well, I don't think he's wore any funky suits while he's been Bayern Munich manager, but when he was Leipzig manager, he wore some very funky and loud suits. Let's put it that way. And I think he would stand out in terms of a Bond villain. I think Daniel Farker just literally looks like a Bond villain. No, but of course, he says that every time. To be fair, Daniel Farker, and I think Sean Dyche would make a good Bond villain as well. He just love a scrap. I mean, obviously the Burnley fanboy himself, Ash Barnes, might say differently. And
he'd be the worst Bond ever. Can you imagine Sean Dyche as James Bond?
Just a very growly voice.
Name's Bond. James Bond. I play Lucky Likelies.
007. Yeah. Sean Dyche. Well, I mean, I think there's definitely. We can ask the rest of the boys what they think, and also
put it in the comments if you think.
Put it in the comments. Who is the best James Bond or villain? Who would be the British Premier League manager, or just a manager? Would be the best James Bond / James Bond villain. I think there's also something there to unpick, Barnes, of the best dressed or worst dressed Premier League manager.
Yes.
Which we can touch on at a later date. I think that'd be very interesting because we're all so fashionable. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think we're going to call it a day there. So thank you very much for listening and watching our first ever live early Bath football podcast. I think this might be the way to go because it makes it easier for us to upload. And it's fun. If you guys, it's more interactive, isn't it? If people want to get involved. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, very much for listening. We'll see you very soon, probably after these weekend's games. Carl Robinson as a Bond, a Scouse Bond. Can you imagine that? A Scouse James Bond. I think that'd be great.
He's a great manager, so he'd make a great Bond.
To be fair, I think Robson would make a better villain just because he likes a bit of a moan. He'd moan at his henchmen quite a lot that they're not doing their jobs properly. Just like he does to the fourth official about the referee most games.
Oh, I was doing the outro and I waysided myself. Yeah, so please comment below your favourite James Bond villain or character that could be a Premier League manager. One of those. Comment, subscribe, follow, review, do everything or anything that your social media podcast listening platform does for feedback because we do really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you soon. I'm going to end this and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we'll end it. Goodbye. Wave and goodbye.
Waving goodbye.
Waving goodbye.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Very Bond. Very Bond.